Hey everybody, Andrew Sloss with Sloss Career Coaching. I hope you're doing very well. Wanted to jump on here real quick and talk a little bit, of course, about my favorite topic, toxic workplaces. But more importantly, I want to talk about how to survive toxic workplaces. I think, unfortunately, what you see across YouTube and a lot of other channels is all about how companies, bosses can prevent toxic workplaces from happening. And you don't really hear a lot about how you, as an employee, can survive a toxic workplace. But before I hop into those particular tips, I do want to stress the importance of if you do find yourself in a toxic work environment, I cannot stress enough the importance of getting out of that toxic work environment as soon as possible. Not everyone can quit a job without another job lined up, and I get that. I've been in that situation where I've been in a toxic work environment and desperately needed to quit but couldn't afford to quit because I had a wife who was expecting and another kid that was 4 at the time. So I understand how difficult it can be. But you need to get out because the amount of damage that workplace is going to do to your emotional and mental and physical health is not worth it. It just isn't worth it because you're going to spend a lot more money having to undo all that than you give up by just quitting without a job in place. So the second point I want to make before I jump into is just because you don't like your job doesn't mean it's toxic. I think the toxic workplace gets thrown around a lot and gets used by a lot of people who honestly are just lazy and aren't good at their jobs. So just because you're unhappy at work doesn't mean it's toxic. It could be toxic, but it doesn't mean it is. So for those of you who are watching who truly are in a toxic work environment, and that includes people who are being sexually harassed, verbally abused, yelled at, demeaned, belittled, taken for granted, this is for you. All right. So, how do you survive at a toxic work environment? Number one, and by far the most important, almost none of these other tips are going to matter if you don't take care of this first one. The first one is you've got to set boundaries and you've got to set hard boundaries. Know your limits. Don't let people consume your personal time. Take breaks when you need them and make sure that you communicate those boundaries to individuals and make sure you do not make exceptions to those boundaries. And again, like one of the most common examples are if you're allowed a lunch break, take your lunch break. Don't let people put it on you that, oh, well, just do this really quick, do that really quick. No. From 12 to 1, 12 to 12:30, 12:30 to 1 to 1:30, whenever you've designated your lunch break to be, that is your time. That is your time. It doesn't matter. So make sure you're setting that time apart. If someone says, "Hey, I really need you to get this done for me right now," and it's your lunch time, say, "Hey, look, happy to tackle this when I come back in a half an hour or an hour, whatever your lunch break is. But right now, it's my lunch break, and I'm going to take my lunch break. I'm going to step away from my desk. I'm going to go out of the office, do what I need to do, and get away. And maybe you're going to go sit in the break room. Maybe you're going to go somewhere else. But you got to make sure you set boundaries. That's just one example of boundary setting, but there's a ton more. Make sure that you set boundaries and then you stick by those boundaries. Number two, you want to stay professional. Got to try to keep your work quality and your professionalism at a very high level. Avoid getting dragged into the drama of a toxic work environment. Stay focused on your job and execute your tasks well. They say keep your head down, your eyes focused on what you need to do. Don't worry about try to do your best. Don't worry about what's going on around you to the extent that you can and focus just on your tasks. Number three, document everything. Keeping track of all the records and documenting conversations and decisions are very important. You can document them in an email. You can document them in a Word document. You can document them in a voice note. Not as great, but make sure you document them. This can protect you if issues arise. And when I talk about documenting things, I don't mean sending something to HR. Honestly, HR is not your friend. HR is there to protect the company from the employees. They're not there to protect the employees. And there's going to be some HR people who will take umbrage to that, but that's the truth. They aren't there for the employees' sake. They're not there to protect you. They're there to protect the company. So document, document, document. If you are engaged in the toxic work environment or having communication with a toxic worker, make sure you're following up any conversations that you're having with them via email to make sure that you're understanding what was talked about and what the expectations are moving forward so that you have that in case something comes up. Number four, we're up to number four. Seek support. And now this can be a little dicey. If you have colleagues you can trust, try to seek some support internally. But you also need to understand that your coworkers, there isn't one of them that is your friend. I don't care how much you like them, how much you enjoy hanging out with them. Even if you hang out with them outside of work, they're not your friends. They just are not. So if you can find some support systems at work, that is really great. But you also really need to find some support systems outside of work. And that might mean a professional therapist. There's absolutely nothing wrong with seeking a professional therapist for that sort of thing. I have done that in the past multiple times, to be honest with you, when I've been in a toxic, both in a toxic work environment and just when I was struggling at work. I have sought out a therapist to help me. Don't be embarrassed. The stigma that sometimes exists, just ignore that. It's very important that you get some outside help. And if you don't want to do a therapist, you definitely need some sort of outside good friend, someone who can help. Just be there and listen. But you also have to be a little bit careful about who you choose as an outside person to talk to, because you want to make sure that they are also still encouraging you, speaking positively into your life, speaking positively into your experience. You don't want them reinforcing negative emotions, reinforcing negative thoughts. So again, you got to find some support, but you got to be careful who that support is, right? Know your rights. Make sure you familiarize yourself with your company's employee manual, their policies. Make sure you understand what, if any, sort of formal procedure there is for a complaint. Again, you do want to be careful. You don't want to just go running to HR. But if something is happening to you at work that is in violation of the employee handbook, and there is a mechanism in place for resolving that issue, make sure you're using the tools that you have available. And so make sure you familiarize yourself with employee handbook, whatever sort of manuals that they have at your employer, and avail yourself of those opportunities to say, hey, look, this is something that's happening. According to the employee handbook, I should be doing this, and so I'm coming to you and saying, hey, this is an issue, and according to the manual, this is what I'm supposed to do, so I'm bringing to your attention, blah, 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 whatever the case may be. So make sure that you understand that, and make sure you understand what your rights are outside of the company handbook too, because the company handbook isn't always what's legal and what's legally allowed. Sometimes it's not. They don't jive up all the time. Usually they do, but they don't always. So make sure you understand your rights. Self-care. You got to make sure that if you're in a toxic work environment, that you are setting aside time outside of work to do something that's going to make you happy, that's going to bring you joy, whatever the case may be. You've got to find some self-care. Find a time to go to the spa, get a massage, get your nails done, go golfing, go hunting, go fishing, whatever it is that you like to do. I love to read. I can escape into reading, and for me that's really simple. I can grab a book, find a quiet corner in my house if my kids are sleeping or not around, and just read a book. That brings me a lot of joy, and that's self-care to me. But you might be different. So whatever self-care to you, you got to make sure you find self-care. You have to prioritize yourself, exercise, go for a walk, whatever. Try not to eat a pint of ice cream if you can help it. Take care of yourself. Try to get some good sleep on top of that. Last but not least, you definitely need to consider your options. If you're in a toxic workplace, you've been there for a while, you've tried to exercise some of these other options we've discussed, you've even talked internally about what the policy says, you've tried to resolve it internally, what are your options? Can you stay there long term? Do you need to start looking for another job? What are your options? But you need to start considering them now as opposed to later. Because I'm just telling you, you don't want to be in that job longer than you have to be if you're in a toxic workplace. So anyways, I hope those were helpful. If you want to hop on a free call with me to talk about your toxic workplace, talk about any of these tips or tricks, or get any other advice you want to get around career coaching or career progress, send me a message, drop a comment down below. Happy to chat with you. Until next time, make it a good day. See you.